A good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance? Join the authors of Design to Change and explore this series of conversations with designers and event owners. Driven by the need and conversations with event owners and event designers who use the event canvas around the world, this series explores the depths of conversations to elevate your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Episodes are hosted by Ruud Janssen, Roel Friesen, Dennis Lehrer, and Paul Rookens, with illustrious changemakers, designers, and pioneers in the field of design and beyond. To explore these conversations and additional content, visit designtochange.online. For now, let's start the conversation.
Conversations.
All right. Welcome back to the Design to Change podcast. My name is Ruud Janssen, your host. And today I'm joined by XAV Fernandez from Barcelona. And XAV and I met in Barcelona on was it the 20th of November?
Yeah,
Probably about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And XAV and I had a really interesting conversation after she reached out to us to meet in person and have a coffee. So in this conversation, XAV, what I'd like to start us off with is a question we ask all of our guests, which is: a good conversation can shift the direction of change forever. Would you leave it to chance?
I love this question, actually. To me, it sounds a lot like this thing of free will and how much control we can have about the outcomes that happen in our life, right? And as a designer, I I I can say that I design a lot my lives and my meetings and my encounters with people,
Yeah.
but just to the fact that I am very conscious of who I am today as a professional, as a person, and what types of meetings and what types of people I would like to meet to reach a certain it can be a goal or a new wisdom. So in a way, many of the decisions I make are very conscious, and I think the designer always have this consciousness about what they are doing, why they're doing. They ask these questions for who, right? And our life, when it's about our life, and there is like a chance we can design our lives, obviously until a certain degree, but I really believe in that we can not necessarily leave it to chance. We can also design this type of things for ourselves and design our lives and routines and whatever, the careers. But at the same time, I think chance always will play a part. I
A
think,
role somehow. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And even as an example, our own meeting, our meeting by itself, I could say was designed by me because I knew you, I knew even Design Collective. I am interested in that. I would love to reach out and see what could come from that. It was not necessarily by chance, but it was by chance how I got to know even Design Collective.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like this weird combination between like design and conscious decision making with the beauty of life, actually. That is this thing that also is ongoing creational process, and
Yeah.
chaotic also.
Yeah. So let's because XAV is a curator, experience designing, and artist mentor, right? So you blend art, technology, and well-being for the new era, right? If people would look you up on LinkedIn, and well, with your permission, add your link to LinkedIn if people would like to reach out to you as a result
Of
of this
course.
podcast. I'm keen to hear the backstory of the fact that how did you run into the work that we do at the Event Design Collective, because that started rooted in a story with somebody else that we know in common.
Yeah.
But also, us, at the end of the day, as an exhibition curator and experience designer, right? So at Soto Bosco, I remember when we were in Barcelona, you mentioned, oh, we can let's have a coffee, right? Because
Mhm.
we apparently we sent an email saying, oh, we're going to be
Mhm.
in Barcelona for IBTM for a trade show. Here are some of the activities that are going on, and you reached back out as one of the few people that said, let's meet for a coffee, right? I
Mhm.
might not be at IBTM, um, and I might not be in that realm of the events industry, but let's spend some time together and get to know each other in person. So that's always a powerful creational process, as you call it. I like that. A conscious decision, right, on how you want to spend your time. But maybe
Mhm.
take us back a little bit, if you don't mind, to that first braiding point and how you ran into the event
Mhm.
canvas or the work we do at Event Design Collective.
Yes, of course. Well, I'm Brazilian, and I was at that time when I got to hear about you guys was when I was still in Brazil. I was working as a UX designer. That was one of my longest career experience.
Hmm.
I experienced designer for the last 8 years. Now shifting more towards like cultural experiences design, but still it's the same, principles, the same methodology as the, I would say, traditional UX design in a startup or digital organization.
Hmm.
And I was working at the time as the UX designer in Guia Bolsos, which was a startup in this area of São Paulo that is plenty of startups and technology companies. And nearby was happening a workshop in one of those hubs, creative hubs. And the workshop was about events design, held by Marika Mardelli, which is a Brazilian event organizer, and I guess she did your course, and she became one of your official I don't know how you call ambassadors or
Yeah, she took our program at the
mentors.
University of Amsterdam, and then she became a certified event designer. Yeah.
Certified event designer, exactly. And at that time, I was already starting to flirt with the idea of applying the design thinking, UX design methodologies into cultural events and art events. So that was literally my first step into what now has been like 6, 7 years journey of actually applying these things. And it was beautiful. I think since as a kid I was an event person. I would love it. It is to me still a very interesting, almost even like scientific. I have the scientific approach
Yeah.
to events, and design, UX design. It's also a scientific process. You observe, you have research. User testing, everything, and then after you made those conscious decisions to design a certain system
Hmm.
to impact behavior.
Hmm.
And I love the idea of events and like more physical or even hybrid events that have also the digital experience involved, this potential to
Hmm.
impact people. It can
Yeah.
be through different ways.
Yeah.
And Mari at that time showed us how to use the event design canvas to impact people through this methodology.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating to me, also because I think it's very interesting, this idea of templates,
Hmm.
right? This was one of the reasons also I reached out to you.
Yeah.
It's like how I think this is a very interesting way to help people themselves to have clarity, know about what they're doing. And even to me, it's almost like also an agreement. It helps people to make it tangible, something that now is just an idea.
Yeah.
So, and make it also as a commitment, like, okay, an agreement between those people that are there involved
Yeah.
into that process.
Yeah. Almost like a mini social contract because you collaborated and spent time together on something you co-create, you design
Exactly.
together, right? So design is not a
Mm-hmm.
solo sport, as you mentioned, and
Exactly.
so it's a quite a different world from the UX design space where I suppose, and I don't know, but if UX designers are listening to this, user interface designers, for people that are not familiar with the term UX, how would you say UX design is different from event design, or
Mm-hmm.
what are the, if you would compare contrast the two kind of roles,
Uh-huh.
how would you differentiate them?
I would say from what I've seen, but and especially into the cultural scene, which is what I've been where I've been playing.
Hmm.
The event design, um, sorry, the UX design is a bit more, like I said, has this scientific tone to it. We don't just believe in just because, or just the emotional aspect of things, or the visionary aspect is not enough, or this creation process. We believe in this part, but not as a totality. Oh, that's all we need. So in UX design, I could even say that we are overthinkers by nature, because we're like, okay, but why, when we frame in different angles, we
Yeah.
zoom in, we zoom out, there's
Mm.
all this like exercise that we do so we don't assume things.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why. And the other reason is to make sure that we are impacting for real, right? So you have the KPIs, for example, or you have like the hypothesis.
Mm.
So to me, this is a very interesting way of working because
Mm.
it brings me a bit more factual reality
Mm.
that usually I don't see so much into the arts as in culture being applied.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
everything is very beautiful, very creative, but not so much. I don't know if we're really impacting what we're promising. I don't know
Yeah.
if we're really achieving that thing.
Yeah.
I feel like usually in this scene, in this industry, it's very idealistic and
Yeah.
not so much practical and realistic. And I think it's a beautiful harmony when we can combine both, you
Yeah.
know?
And if you would compare that to event design, because you're saying UX is more scientific, maybe it overthinks a little bit too much, right? It's
Mhm, mhm,
it's it's in order to not assume, but then events are so like ethereal, almost closer to the artistic kind of side of things, right? Where the experience in itself is much less tangible. It's harder to measure, harder to grasp.
mhm.
Um, I would even say that many event designers or many people in events don't make hypotheses out loud. They might make them in the head of the event owner.
Mhm.
And very often there's a complete lack of factual realism when it comes to how they spend the time and money of
Mhm.
the stakeholders coming to an event, right, or being part of an event,
Yeah.
which also makes it, if you look at it from the scientific or business perspective, a hard thing to grasp, right? A hard thing
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
nail down because it's probably much like art in the eye of the beholder, right? What the value creation is in the eye of the beholder, much more potentially than it is in the art of the in the hand of the creator, right? Or the
Yeah.
creators. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing also that I think differentiates both, it's like the when we're talking about UX design in a, for example, a startup, you're designing an application, you have a user base, right, that you're
Yeah.
working with, and they are
Yeah.
usually returning. Obviously, depends on the case, depends on the project that you're working on. But a lot of times we are treating a user base that it's a returning, it's a controlled environment in a way, right? We can
Yeah.
see the impact through time
Yeah.
and the change of behavior through time. And I
Yeah.
think depending on your event, what you're bringing your institution, it's a little bit trickier, right? Because sometimes it's like one time goal or an ephemeral event that won't really happen again. How can you metrify impact if it's one thing and I will never see you again as the my
Yeah.
event goers again,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I totally agree. That's the main challenge there. But we can also, for example, when we talk about like communities that have a base, right? A following base or returning people.
Yeah.
I think in those cases might be a little bit easier for you to metrify and have this visibility of impact through time. Um,
I like that a lot
yeah.
because that's so critical, right? The ability to I'd never come across the word metrify. I like that. To metrify something, right? Like put metrics around it, I suppose, right?
Hmm.
To see the change of behavior through time or over time. Because at the end of the
Hmm.
day, that's really what articulated value growth over time represents, right? We like to call it, or when we think about it, we think about how does your event create value and how do you, to craft, quantify, and celebrate progress over time, right? And
Hmm.
progress could also be, needs to be defined probably of what is progress, right? Is it
Totally.
degress or progress? But at the end of the day, this is what many people are interested in. And I suppose in your in the role that you are taking on, because you have multiple roles, right? Which you
Hmm.
exemplified when we had our conversation. Now, maybe we can look into that just a little bit before we carry down the rabbit hole of
Hmm.
the artist ally in you, right?
Hmm.
This nurturing and supportive coach to people that are in the arts environment.
Hmm.
In your other professional life, you were also involved with the International Institute of Gastronomy, Arts, and Tourism. Can you share a
Exactly.
little bit about that, and then we'll dive down the art rabbit hole after that?
Hmm. Yes. Yeah, there I've been working with this institute. We are mainly holding competitions around gastronomy, right?
Yeah.
So these competitions, they go from Young Chef Awards,
Hmm.
which they compete to who is cooking first. First of all, the institute protects cultural gastronomy heritage. Let's
Okay.
put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
So in those competitions, there's something about traditions of regions around the world, and in these competitions, we have the food film menu, for example, which is storytelling. So how we frame food and food production in a creative way. So that's what we're exploring there, right? And
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
film directors, for example, get awarded in different categories.
Yeah.
So maybe that film is promoting more like and sustainability. Other ones are promoting innovation in gastronomy. So we have this category awards also, and but then we have young chefs, we have food gifts challenges. So it's very interesting because it covers gastronomy in a very holistic way,
Yeah.
from creative to actual cooking, right? The cooking process, and even products as the food gifts, for example. And it's very interesting. And recently we had the first summit. So
Hmm.
this was the World Gastronomy Summit, which then involves more. It's not a competition. This one was more an event to create new policies around food, and
Okay.
especially seeing food as a valuable cultural asset,
Hmm.
right? So it was also very involved with UNESCO agenda
Hmm.
in a way to make food become not just this nutritional, right? It has this not recognizing food only as a nutritional value, but also as a cultural value, also as a world heritage.
Yeah.
Um,
Fascinating work. And in
yeah.
that organization, you're active because it's a fairly small organization, right? Is it? Yeah.
A
So
big
what?
network, but small team.
Yeah, yeah. Which many of our listeners recognize that when you have
Uh-huh.
mission-driven organizations that are at some point organized to be able to put on events or to
Hmm.
make small dents in a big universe, you need people dedicated to the making the engine go forward, right? Making it work. Um, how may I ask how did you fall into that, and how does it relate to the other work that you do?
hmm Well, the institute is the president and the founder was my teacher at the Masters of Arts and Cultural Management
Yeah,
here in
yeah,
Barcelona.
yeah.
So that's how I met her. She gave classes on cultural, I think it was, yeah, cultural policies, but involved with public funding because this is a nonprofit institute here
Yeah.
and it runs on public funding mainly. So that's how it started. And then through time, I've been working as, again, UX designer, communications, brand design, um, as a freelancer when I moved here to Barcelona. And at some point, they were looking for one, and I had the connections. I knew people. Mainly, she recruits mainly people that she taught in the masters.
Mhm.
So I was lucky to have that opportunity to go into the institute.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so and so the focus of what we want to talk about in this onstage part of the conversation is how you curate and how you are an experienced designer and an artist mentor, right? You say in you look at Xav's email sign off, it says crafting experience to expand minds and mentoring to spark the shift. Could
hmm
you enlighten us what brought you
Yeah.
to this and how you do that?
Uh-huh. So, yes, the expanding minds, I think is very even connected to one of your lines of design that changed behavior,
Uh-huh.
right? To me, when I think about the art experiences that I design, and even the mentorship that I hold with my mentees,
Mm-hmm.
um, it all comes to that idea of, okay, all my art experiences, I don't even like to call my curatorial work as art exhibitions. I see art exhibitions as events that are catalysts for transformation. That's why this idea of um, not only transformation but expanding minds. That's also why this idea of expanding minds and the shift, sparking the shift, is this transformational aspect of
Mm.
that is possible through arts and culture,
Yeah.
um, and through these mentorship sessions also, because I even see these mentorship sessions as events. Obviously, they are made of two people because it's
Mm-hmm.
a one-on-one experience, but they are events. And that's even something that Mari in that lecture that she gave us, that
Mm.
workshop, she said, she's like, an event, it can be two people only, right? And there's an opportunity, this still is an opportunity for you to drive an outcome from that when you have consciousness, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really touched me, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, obviously, you increase the complexity as much the more people you involve, the more stakeholders you involve, but in essence, like it's all the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I see this whenever I'm designing an art experience. Again, I have this designer mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's even in the video, the intro video of my website.
Yeah.
It really says that like I'm here to impact behaviors, and that's what I like to do in the art scene.
Yeah.
So this thing of the exhibitions of the traditional ones, right? The Ice Cube gallery that you just see a thing hanging on the wall. It's not my type of thing. Um, what I create when designing those experiences is are ephemeral spaces
Mm-hmm.
that again, they expand mind, especially through interaction and participation from the event goer, right? The person that is going there. So the idea is that I inspire people through the content that is being shown there. So the artworks, for example, the installations.
Mm.
But there is always a moment in this experience that people are participating.
Yeah.
And I really believe into agency as also a catalyst for transformation and this thing of changing behavior. When we think about, I love also the gaming aspect, right? Like when we're talking about games, you're an active player. And I
Mm.
think that's also why they're so immersive
Mm.
because you're participating, you're a co-creator of that storyline that's
Yeah.
going on. And to me, there is no difference into the experiences that I'm designing for the arts.
Yeah.
How can I make people feel in their bodies what I'm also showing them through art, right? So they can
Yeah.
interact with that theme, with those symbols, with that philosophy, and in that moment, exercise it,
Hmm.
with those more interactive installations that are
Yeah.
designed also by me. Some of
Yeah.
them are even um, they are data collection that people participate and that they can see right there, like an infographic almost of what's going on. Some of them are more creative. It depends. There's different type of categories that I apply also into those experiences, depending on what is the purpose, the need, and
Hmm.
yeah.
I'm
Um,
fascinated by as you were talking about this, I was sharing the opening video that you mentioned of your of the website where expanding minds and sparking inner shifts kind of
mhm,
gets addressed in a narrative, right? Where every moment has the power to shape who we are and how we
mhm,
perceive the world around us, and that being able to observe those and ask critical questions about them um, is a way to I think, as you say it, that um, there's nothing better than taking people to a different reality via the creation of causes that leads to planned effects.
exactly.
Whoa, that's deep.
Thank you. I work hard to get to that point.
The narrative is important too, right? The way you speak about things or the way that things are being expressed or talked about once it's been created. I suppose that's part of the challenge of any artist is
Hmm.
first of all to make sure the work is accessible
Hmm.
in some way or other,
Definitely.
right? If it
Hmm.
remains hidden in a studio where nobody can access it,
Hmm.
or never gets
Yeah.
published, or never gets to see the daylight, how can you turn art exhibitions into events for catalysts of transformations if it's not seen, right? If
A
it's
hundred
not being
percent.
observed in the first place.
And not, I would even add something rude is like
Yeah.
not only that, that's 100%. You hit a very important point,
Hmm.
but also how to make it be understood to the audience. Because there's one thing that I strongly believe that the curator is this bridge between audience and artist. Imagine the artist is in this like creative, ongoing creative universe that they create for themselves. They are actually, usually, that's something I've learned through time, extremely immersed in their own, literally universe. Like, and it's very hard for them to be able to translate that universe in a digestible way to the audience.
Hmm.
A lot of if you think about it, the creative process, a lot of times is very intuitive, very symbolic, and psychological, emotional, and the artists don't have clarity about these things. And that's, for example, where my mentorship goes. This is
Hmm.
one of the aspects that I treat with them. Bring
Hmm.
clarity to themselves about what am I doing here? Um, and it's very interesting because it says a lot about them or about their views of the world, everything that they are creating through art, right? The artwork becomes this crystallization of a philosophy or a feeling or whatever they are addressing there through that totem. But the problem that I see a lot, even in different art exhibitions, especially the gallery, the white walls one, is like translating accurately what this artist is trying to say. So then you can impact people through
Yeah.
that message, because I think it's these artists, they're often misunderstood, right? We even have this archetype, the misunderstood artist, Van Gogh cutting his ears because he's getting crazy.
Yeah.
And how can we even like, one of my biggest goals is how can we even create a safe space for this artist,
Mm.
you know, and to um like empower them to understand themselves and understand that they're not like this alien, that no one understands them,
Yeah.
but just like bring clarity, um and then bring clarity to the audience also. I see very often into this art exhibitions, big museums from small galleries, this type of language that is extremely inaccessible for
Mm.
people,
Mm.
for audiences, and they become spaces that are not welcoming to the masses also. So there's like a lot of problems there of translation, um, and choice of language that I see
Yeah.
into this into
Can
this
I, as
sector.
as you're talking about this, because people, I think are, um, may I cite some examples from your website, some projects, just to like spark the thinking in the head of our
Hmm.
listeners, right? Because
Of
they might be
course.
driving their car or jogging around or, you
Hmm.
know, doing something very mundane whilst they're listening to this podcast. And in order to expand the mind and to get a better clarity, maybe of some of the work that you do or with the artists that you do, maybe we can look at some of these totems, as you call them, right? These crystallizations of the work,
Hmm.
and get an idea of them. And as I kind of just read through a few, just to kind of explore some of these, things, maybe you have others that you'd like to cite as well. The ones I was looking at right here are things like, the first one I came across was fragments of us collecting
Hmm.
exhibition visitors' hair samples for
Hmm.
demographics, right? That's like a
Yes.
participatory installation, interactive art, and data visualization.
Hmm.
Heritage, with hair being, HAIR instead of the
Exactly.
the heritage that most people might think of when they hear the word, and it's called Heritage times Le Freak, Art
Hmm.
Exhibition 3D Scan. Or there's a
Hmm.
Mixing Realities, live visuals using visitors' media files.
Exactly.
And then there's one that's called Everything is a Fiction, Which Cloud is the Real One, right?
Hmm.
Which reminds me of trying to explain the concept of the cloud to my parents or to others that are, it's in the cloud, and then they lose the plot, right? They lose,
Uh-huh.
but I want it on my device. Why is it in the cloud? I don't understand, right? Or there's one that's called Our Map Graph, mapping our migration during expedition in situ,
Uh-huh.
right? There's a passport for a gamified exhibition flyer, right? Expedition in situ. Or an
Hmm.
Inside Out Divine Cyborg, a gamified mixed reality solo show.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
There's a
immersive,
lot.
a time for everything, a bonding and immersive art experience. There's, a
Uh-huh.
treasure hunt in Montjuic, right? In Barcelona,
Hmm.
a gamified eco-cultural tour in a mountain. Um, the kind of work you do is very broad and very eclectic, right? If I look at it like
Hmm.
this, and people who are in events
Hmm.
might just say, yeah, but my events just have like a venue and people get together and then they dissipate
Hmm.
again. And it is
Hmm.
very ephemeral,
Hmm.
and it's hard to metrify. When you look
Yeah.
at these examples, and maybe there's probably many more that you might not be able to talk about yet, right? You mentioned also before we got started that you have just published a report,
Hmm.
which sounds very scientific, right? When reports
Hmm.
get written, things get measured or get
Hmm.
articulated, I suppose, right? Could
Totally.
you enlighten us a little bit how those things correlate?
Hmm. Yeah, and even for this art experiences that I've been designing, I build reports for them, which is something that you don't usually see. You can see it in big, very big art institutions like MACBA, MoMA. You can find those type
Yeah,
of things,
yeah.
um, big cultural centers. But when we talk about more independent or smaller curators, even organizers, even gallerists, you don't usually find. Um, I feel like the report, for example, it's to me, it's a very important tool. First, to storytell what happened, right, in that ephemeral moment, um, and have clarity. Like it's very important to me as a cultural agent in a way. And catalyst for change in
Hmm.
inner when I say inner shifts in that
Hmm.
tagline, it's also like caring about people and how I'm changing them. I know that everything that I'm doing has an impact in these people.
Hmm.
It can be through time, and it's okay. Like
Hmm.
change takes time also. That's another
Yeah.
thing that people keep forgetting. Like it's not like you come to my event and suddenly you're a different person. It's not like that. But maybe I implanted a seed in you, right? That will keep there. And maybe after a few years, it will make sense to you. Or
Yeah.
maybe next day, who knows, right? But the report gives me the clarity of my impact, at
Hmm.
least in that moment, or at least showing the behavior that we could observe or even metrify in some cases, in that moment, right? For me, it's very important, for example, if in those this participatory interactive art installations that I built for my exhibitions, are people participating? This is one of the things. Like if we had 30 people coming, for example, that night, how many of those were willing to go through that tiny experience, micro experience inside and a
Yeah.
bigger one,
So
right?
if I take you down that rabbit hole of heritage, for example, right, as an
Hmm.
example,
Hmm.
because you have to commit to participate, I suppose. Can you explain how that would work? Like how
Yeah.
would you make it tangible?
So just a contextual, also like picturing a little, giving a picture of what
Yeah.
happened there. Actually one of good friends of mine and even one of the my flatmates that I work, she is a hairdresser.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, I've been doing the art experiences, right? And at some point, one day, she was doing my hair, and she was like, "I would love to do a hair exhibition, like an exhibition around hair." That's how it
Wow.
started.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would love to. Like, you are the expert. I don't know anything about hair, I just like my hair done. But I am this designer, this curator that has experience into building this type of events, right?
Yeah.
And I think we can find um, a very interesting frame, like
Hmm.
to explore this theme, right?
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
was beautiful, like the whole research. That's another thing. I'm applying design thinking there also, right? Let me
Yeah.
research, let me see all the possibilities that we have around hair, like
Hmm.
as themes.
Yeah.
And with that together, we this was co-created by both of us. Together, we decide a specific frame. What do we want to tell people? What do we want to teach them through this art exhibition?
Hmm.
And the frame was heritage, literally, in a way of the heritage of our hairs.
Hmm.
We are all immigrants here, my circle, my community.
Hmm.
So it was very interesting because I told them, um, what if we involve all these people from all these different cultures, right?
Yeah.
To bring stories of their hair. So this was how it's all started. And then while we were creating the exhibition proposal you just showed now, the 200 cent is the art space that we held the exhibition.
Hmm.
Um, when we were doing the proposal for them, um, I decided that we would have three pillars for this
Hmm.
art experience.
Hmm.
One was the artistic, which then is the artworks, and then comes the traditional curatorial work of choosing the artists, understanding each piece, why they're there, right? The scientific one, which was this idea of fragment of us.
Yeah.
How can we show people that come into heritage? How can we show them scientific and experiential? We had those. So those were three. So the scientific one was um, how can we show and metrify this experience, this heritage
Yeah.
experience? So the
Yeah.
idea of fragment of us, for example, was creating a data visualization, live data visualization, and using people's hair that were coming to the exhibition. So this would bring us the hair demographics of
Yeah.
the people that were attending
Hmm.
the exhibition for 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think we
Hmm.
held there.
Hmm.
And it was beautiful to see how people were willing and loved this idea. Um, the other pillar was the experiential, which was bringing real people that we knew that were coming from different continents, different hair types, different cultures, and invite them to bring their stories. So that's why experiential, like what was your experience in your own context
Hmm.
with hair and your heritage, basically.
Yeah.
But then the interesting of Fragment of Us is this live data collection, right?
Hmm.
That people could interact. So then they were seeing at that moment. We had like the tubes, kind of like glass
Yeah. I
tubes.
saw that
People
picture, but
could
yeah.
cut,
Yeah.
yeah, people could cut their piece of their hair and put in the tube that their hair represented, the type, hair type, because there are different hair types, right?
And you
Um,
had to self-identify which hair type you were, or how does that?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Identify yourself, but also zooming out and seeing what was the demographics of this event.
Yeah.
So we could see that the hair type, I don't remember now exactly the number, but the coily hair had a
Yeah.
very low representation. So there were not so many black people coming to our experience, for example.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a very interesting way to metrify the even
That's so cool.
the
Yeah.
representation that we had in that art exhibition.
Yeah. I like how you
Mhm.
break it down because you make it very visible, very tangible, but also there's tension because hair contains DNA and there's something very
Mhm.
personal maybe about
Yeah.
people. I remember as a kid growing up in the Philippines as a teenager, I remember, going to some more remote places because my and people would come up and touch your hair, right? And it's something it's almost like, washing someone's feet or something.
Uh-huh.
It's very intimate, when you touch
It
somebody's
is.
hair. It's
Uh-huh.
not and it evokes something in people, right? Would I cut off a piece of my hair and leave it behind at an exhibition,
Hmm.
right? To contribute to
Hmm.
it. I can imagine people listening to this as well, thinking about this.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, I guess, right? Of evoking the emotion, creating tension, creating
Mhm.
clarity. And I like how simple you break it down and metrify it then into saying, okay, which bucket does yours belong to, right? So to
Hmm.
say, and
Hmm.
how many representations do we have of that? And
Hmm.
did you tell people what you were going to do with that beyond observing a metric, or was it like a mystery?
Hmm. Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I was going to say that. I was playing with your event culture analyzer, and
Yeah,
I put heritage. It's nice that you're going that direction even
yeah,
because I wanted to see what you would understand from a more like arts, right? Art event in a way, and understand how because you have this several sections of analysis, right? The
yeah,
snapshot, the tone, thematics, everything. And it was like, okay, let's see how it goes with something more artistic. And one of the things that it flagged in a way was the ethical consent and consent framework,
Yeah.
as explain how the hair samples are used, stored, analyzed, and or even disposed.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because we didn't think at any moment about consent because people didn't have to give us, right? They obviously mm,
It
they
was
were,
voluntary.
yeah, it was voluntary. So um, we at any moment thought about asking for like an official consent or a
Hmm.
signature or anything like that. Just by
Yeah.
them coming up, getting their hair cutting, we implied that
You
they
give
were giving
consent by doing
consent.
that. Yeah.
Exactly. But the interesting thing to me was the disposed, what we do with that hair, which I think we, in that case, I really like the suggestion, right? The in the last section, the recommendations of the analyzer. I do think we should have done this better. And we did address, me and Soleil, the other curator,
Hmm.
what we're gonna do with the rest of the hair. One of the things, for example, that Soleil told me that I had no idea of is there are institutions around the globe that collect hair samples. You can send them,
Yeah.
and they do filters to clean the ocean. So that is something that we wanted to do with the hair that we collected.
Yeah.
We didn't end up doing it. We didn't promise either. Like there was nothing that we saying anywhere that we would do
Yeah.
this, but that was something that we
You could
internally
have. Yeah.
were discussing. It was more regarding logistics, the times that we have, and I'm not actually, I have to ask them what did they do with the hair because I don't know. We collected, we got it back, the tubes and everything, but they work in the hair salon. I don't know if they used it in a way, but that is interesting. I will ask them to know, to have some clarity about that because it would sustainability would be involved in that, right? Like what we do with this, but also the ethical and consent because like you said, hair is very intimate, and that was one of the biggest things that I learned through this process of heritage. It's how intimate it is and how much bigger than just like styling thing is, people.
It sounds like something just purely aesthetic and yeah, okay, go to the
Yeah.
hairdresser, I'm going to
Hmm.
one actually right after our
Yeah.
Zoom recording. Not that I have a lot of hair, but it's a ritual you go through because you want to look presentable for Christmas or whatever the thing might be,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's funny how you can now take a subject or a topic like you've done, which
Hmm.
almost like you well, did you leave it to chance? I mean, it's a roommate that, expressed
Hmm.
an interest. There's something you hadn't necessarily thought about, and it
Hmm.
turns into this very interesting topic, right? In this podcast, who would have known that we would have be
Hmm.
talking about hair? I didn't know that, 1 hour
Yes,
ago. And
exactly.
if you're listening to this podcast and wondering what are they going on about, make sure to retrace the steps in this whole conversation because this is how we don't leave things to chance, right?
Hmm.
Xav, I really appreciate how you, as our Dennis, Dennis Lyer, the guy that makes these visuals
Hmm.
in our books, etc., is also a highly artistic designer, right? Or a designed artist. I don't know. He's always, clarifying that identity in some way or other, but he always calls it, how do I take a big hammer and hit a 3D situation over the head to confine it to a 2D space? To
Hmm.
articulate and
Hmm.
exemplify a complex matter and making it narrate in the head of the person looking at it to evoke questions and to maybe clarify or explain. It almost becomes like a totem of a 3D situation, which is impossible. We know that, right? Like an event is dynamic with multiple stakeholders, even if it's just two, it's still
Hmm.
very dynamic, right? Because
Hmm.
who would have known in this past hour that we would end up in this space where now the event culture analyzer, as a matter of fact, the second person on the podcast where we, and I'm glad that you've tried it, Xav, because
Hmm.
that's very exciting for us to see can we take an event moment and analyze its culture by simply taking the snapshot of what was recorded, maybe even, how do we take something ephemeral, to use your words, and metrify it through a very simple, just, set of expressions or analytics
Hmm.
to make people more conscious of that moment and to make it like a blood sample of a human, right? At some point where you can take the DNA from a piece of hair or, assess the status quo. And
Hmm.
one point doesn't mean a lot, but if you have multiple points over time, like you said,
Hmm.
change takes time, right? I like that. I think I'm going to add that to my favorite quotes.
Hmm.
Change takes time by XAV, because if you would look at blood samples over time, right, or an ECG of a heart over time, I wish we could measure the soul, right? Because what you mentioned is, you fill the bottom of the soul on your website through the things that you do. I don't know if we have ways to measure the soul. That's probably very
I think
philosophical.
I think there are ways. Like
There are
I've
ways.
been I've
Okay.
been finding some PhD researchers trying to do that. Like they're trying, but
Really?
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Well, we'll talk about that in the backstage episode in a moment, right?
Yeah.
So, but you having tried the event culture analyzer, can you give us a quick snapshot? What, because you did talk about it a little bit, because this is a new thing that we've tried to
Hmm.
develop to say measuring something in time and seeing the delta between those measurements, the differences between each of these moments in time, would give us a much better idea of what changes actually happened, right, in between those moments of time. How was that experience for you when you saw your creation from earlier this year, right?
Hmm.
Can you give us a sense of time? Like when did that idea first come up with your colleague or roommate that said
Hmm.
we should
Hmm.
do an exhibit about hair, all the way through to where you are today? Like how much time has passed since, roughly?
Yeah, for sure, almost like around 2 years, this
Two
whole
years.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we started like this first conversation was I think 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then slowly we started to research. Like I said, it's a long process, like researching the theme, uh, f- uh, crafting the proposal, understanding these pillars of the exhibition. Like,
Yeah.
it was a very long process. And
Yeah.
then obviously curating, doing open call to find artists. So there's a lot going on.
And then the exhibit was 3 weeks, you said, in
Hmm.
Q1 of this year.
Yes, it was in February, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that on the website. It was like end of January and February. So
exactly.
so 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 it takes 2 years of work leading up to all the creationary process to
Hmm.
a 2 3 week kind of exhibit, and now you have the
Yeah.
learnings from it, and now you did the event cultural snapshot with the
Yeah.
event culture analyzer.
Hmm.
Beyond the report you wrote about it, what did this bring you that otherwise would have been missing, besides what you were saying about
Hmm.
post exhibit, we could have done this, or I didn't realize that the impact of getting consent
Yeah.
or, reusing the hair in ways that have
Hmm.
been, commercialized between brackets or sustainably put into
Hmm.
play for cleaning the ocean or, whatever the
Hmm.
purpose might be. What else
Hmm.
has it brought you, if you think back, just really?
Yeah. One of the things it was very interesting, this scientific lens, like that we knew because of the obviously the hair samples and the this installation,
Yeah,
but I think it read very accurately this idea of a micro laboratory of
yeah,
identity.
yeah,
That's literally the words of the analyzer. And I couldn't find a better way to put it. And I think just like we were saying, like this idea of communicating, how to communicate, even with your illustrator, I forgot now the name, but how to communicate in a simple way something that is highly complex, like an event or. And I think this the analyzer helped me find other ways to put it, right? Like this idea of a micro laboratory of identity, um, and having this scientific framing. This was new keywords
Yeah.
that I wasn't using so much. I knew about the data visualization and everything, but I think that was very interesting. So this idea of like giving more tools, more, even if you're just saying like words,
Yeah.
to give it a better understanding of what this was about. That was one of the things. And this idea also of um, inclusion or ethic, that was very strong in the analysis. I tried with other events also, from IGCAT and other from Artist Ally.
Hmm.
So it always came back to these points, which I think is very interesting. And oftentimes it's something that we consider but don't do it. Like it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's never like a priority.
Yeah.
And here it puts as a priority. So it
Yeah.
shifts a little bit this idea also that sustainability is not the top priority of something. And that to me was interesting. Like that's also why I mentioned for example, the ethical and consent framework lacking, because yeah, I think those things should be done better. And it's interesting how it showed up for
Yeah.
us.
It is because the way um, let's say any tool that analyzes. May I ask what inputs did you put into it to analyze it? Was it
Hmm.
just the URL, or did you add more documents, or what did you put into the
Yeah.
event culture analyzer?
So I added the page, the exhibition's official page in
Yeah.
Arte Informado, which is a website specifically for the arts, that you
Yeah.
can input exhibitions, for example. I
Hmm.
put this page, and I also added the zine, the magazine we created for the exhibition.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So those were the two things
Yeah.
that I added here.
Yeah. So your analysis probably is much deeper than what I just really quickly got out of it. And for people wondering, what are we talking about? The Event Culture Analyzer is a tool that we created at the Event Design Collective to report on the culture of a specific situation, right? So we
Hmm.
often talk about this idea that show me an organization's event or exhibition or an artist's exhibition, and I'll tell you about their culture at that moment in time.
Hmm.
Saying it is easy, but metrifying it and reporting it is much harder, right? So we created a tool, if you will, to input an event's or an exhibit's URL, maybe the magazine, as you mentioned. Maybe you have, background documents or a program or, um, narratives that are available about it. And it then analyzes in a very specific structure and context, basic things like, core themes and cultural signals, the context in which it takes place, the cultural significance, the broader public perception and event nodes, not to be confused with if there's other events or things taking place, but you went much deeper, right? Because the reporting goes much deeper also about topics that were addressed and topics that were avoided or not addressed, right?
Hmm.
Um, and it creates a very detailed kind of overview. And in the podcast we recorded literally 2 days ago with another event designer, two event designers, certified event designers, Patty Spagnola and Brian Best, we analyzed their conference for the Association of Continuing Higher Education, which they designed and are presidents of the board. And they're interested to see over time, how has this event changed? If I would look at the blood samples of 24,
Hmm.
25,
Hmm.
this organization had its 87th event, right? So it's 87-year-old the event. So it's coming to a certain type of maturity. And they
Hmm.
were wondering, what could the culture look like in 2030 when they're no longer on the board? And how do you create um, continuity of the effort over time, right?
Hmm.
I'm sure this
Hmm.
first exhibit was like a discovery. At least to me, this is a discovery. I'm super fascinated by it now. Like, I'm going to research this more.
Hmm.
Like, there could be more coming after this, right?
100%.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
something
Or do you have
we.
projects in this area? Because we just took out one and we went into the rabbit hole, right? But
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or I have a better idea. What if we go backstage and talk about more about the stuff that you're currently working on that's currently on your horizon of change? How does that sound?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. Let's
Yeah?
do this. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, let's do that. The other question I still had about this part is you mentioned that report, but also this event culture analysis that you did on this one. Would you be willing to share that with our readers, just as a
Mm-hmm.
little snapshot, we can make a PDF out of it, and if you go to the show
Absolutely.
notes, you could download that, right, and take a look. What does that look like? An
Mm-hmm.
event culture analyzer report, or the more sophisticated reports that you work on when it comes to the work that you do. Would you be willing
Mm-hmm.
to share that?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, I'm fascinated by our conversation. Our first cup of coffee led to this podcast. I'm sure we can have many, many more. Let me share the quick. Uh, let's go backstage. Oh, and what I wanted to ask here is a question we ask many of our guests. 1 year from today, if you look back, or if you listen back to this podcast, and you think about your horizons of change, what's currently on your horizon of change that we could remind you of if you decide to accept our invitation to be part of the year plus one episode of this podcast? So what's currently on your horizon of change?
As a person.
Work,
Well,
personal exhibits, plans, things that are,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you say change takes time, right? So if I would, if we would have a conversation on Monday next week, there might be very little change. But a year from today, the horizon
Mm-hmm.
of change could be,
Yeah.
only if you look back, you realize how much you did in a year, right? But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
what's something that's on the horizon that you're looking at that you care to share with us?
Yeah, I feel this one that I'll share, it's personal, but also I would like to expand beyond me and transpassing this to others and even the collective,
Yeah.
which is depth, relational depth to ourselves and each other's. I see as culture, and I'm part of this, so obviously this affects me. That's why I say personal.
Hmm.
We are in a culture of more, like more communication, more people, more options, more and more and more and more. But again, more also means less quality of things. And I feel that to have quality, you also need awareness, time,
Hmm.
you need depth, you need to come back, right? If you are, the more distracted, the more it's like our attention span go gets very diminuted once we have more.
Yeah.
And I mean this into everything. And I mean this like into an art exhibition. For example, I usually like to work with solo shows because it's one artist, right?
Yeah.
I'm not like distracting people with 300 artists, and this is overwhelming. Usually like to go that way, for example, but also networks. Like myself as through Artist Ally, for example, my project, one of our goals for 2026, like objectives, is not to increase our allyships, but to nurture the ones that exist, to go deeper with them. We usually think that more means success, but then we forget the ones that came before.
Yeah.
So to me, this is my change that can be personal, but I am also showing this to our following base in Artist Ally, to the exhibitions, everything that I might realize in my career and in my community also.
That's fantastic. Instead of increasing the circle of the allies, focus and deepen the work with the current allies, right?
Yeah,
So
and increase the quality of those allyships.
yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for being on the on stage part of this podcast already, right? our conversations always inspire us or inspire me a lot, and I want to thank you for that, Xav.
Can say the same.
May we call
Thank
on you a year from today to look back at whether what you just said came to fruition? Would you accept that invitation?
Yes, of course. I would love that. It would be a great exercise also to look back into it.
Yeah, it's almost a capsule of time of a commitment that you make to yourself, right? And see if it actually materialized. Yeah,
100%.
Fantastic. Well, that wraps up this onstage part of the episode. This is way longer than we normally do it, but I feel like this topic, this cultural deep dive, almost requires it, right? So thank you for that. We'll meet you backstage for a quick reflection on what we talked about on stage in just a minute. Okay?
Okay.
You've been hanging out backstage on Design to Change Designer Conversations. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe and share conversations online using hashtag Design to Change and hashtag Event Canvas. Want more thought-provoking content like this? Visit designtochange.online to purchase your copy of Design to Change, elevating your abilities to look and act beyond the now. Don't forget, it's more than just a book. Experience a hard copy, audio format, video format, and even augmented reality. Experience it in your style and format. Tune into our next episodes and hear from more designers and change makers. Until then, we look forward to our next conversation.